Hey folks, welcome to our session on the importance of project management skills for everyone and how that impacts the future of project management as a discipline. We do events like this once every month, sometimes more. And really it's our way for our members and our VIP guests to engage directly with some of the experts who contribute to and collaborate with us here at the Digital Project Manager. For those who don't know me, I'm Galen. I'm the co-founder of the Digital Project Manager. I'll be your host for today, for better or for worse. All right. Let's dive in. Today's session is about the future of project management, not project managers. We're going to touch on that too. But more importantly, the emphasis being placed on the skill of project management in virtually every professional role these days, and how to approach building that skill, whether you see yourself as a project manager or not. So maybe let's meet our panelists. Who am I going to pick on? I'm going to pick on Crystal first. So first up, we've got Crystal Richards, renowned project management coach and principal and owner at MindSpark. Now, Crystal, I see it in the background there. You have recently published your new book, PMP Exam Prep for Dummies. And I know that it's like one of those iconic for dummies series from Wiley. It's a great franchise. But I thought I'd ask, in your mind, who is the dummy in PMP Exam Prep for Dummies?
The authors of the 7th edition of the PMBOK Guide.
Whoa now! I got spicy.
I wrote it for them of like, here's how to break it down in plain language and for the rest of us. So yeah, I like that question.
7th edition, very
Notice I didn't say an organization, I just said them people.
I love it. I'm so happy that that book exists. If y'all are interested, you can learn more. It's an easy find. PMP Exam Prep for Dummies. Congratulations on your book release.
Thank you.
Who to pick on next? Maybe I'll just go to Melissa Khan-Blackmore, Chief Project Officer at Powerhouse Project Manager, and the most followed PM creator on TikTok, actually. And Melissa, a few weeks back, you participated in a whole different kind of project as part of Giving Back Day with the Humane Society of Tampa Bay. And as I understand it, there was a team of PMP-wielding project professionals who volunteered to plan, market, and host a fundraising event for shelter dogs. What made you want to be a part of that? And are those dogs now equipped to lead projects as well?
Yes. So one of the things I speak often about is how powerful it is when we as project managers align our skills with our purpose. And when you use project management to do work that actually means something to you, that's where fulfillment kicks in. It's where we find the most joy in our careers and where we're able to make the most impact in the world. So if I get to give back to shelter dogs and use my project management brain, absolutely count me in. And to answer your question, yes, those dogs are officially trained in stakeholder management, especially if there's treats involved.
We're going to retitle the event when we publish it. Everyone's a project manager now, even dogs. I love it. Last but not least, let's go to James Louttit, founder and lead trainer at Impactful Project Management. And James, you've been described as Ireland's top project management expert. You've published a book called Leading Impactful Teams as a published book and an audio book, which is very fun to listen to, by the way. You teach project management using Play-Doh and balloon animals. And now you've got COOs and CIOs from some big companies in Ireland and the UK inviting you out for drinks. When you sit down with them, like, what do they want to know? And also, who foots the bill?
Yeah, it's thanks for having me on, Galen. Like, it's really interesting. The big problems are the same as the small problems, right? The big problems at the top level: how do I prioritize? How do I get the most out of my team? How do I bring value? How do I reduce the stress on my team? So they've got the same problems that we have, and finding language that works across both is really good fun. And I like to say, I kind of bring some cartoons and stories and have a bit of fun with it. In terms of who pays for the drinks, that depends. Like, once we're in the game, once we're kind of in the company, there's normally drinks there. Like, there's normally like a lean coffee at the end, there's beers, whatever. On the way in, like, there's a little dance that you do. Like, it's kind of like, no, I'll get this. No, I'll get this. And it's like, I don't know. And the Irish and English play on the thing is weird, but I'd say about 50-50.
Leading impactful bill fighting. I know that dance well. I love it. I see in the chat someone says, I need a Play-Doh PM. Super awesome. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I think the common thread here is that you all know how to boil it down. Project management is dense. It's difficult to digest. Some people don't even want to talk about it at all, but you've each found ways on your various channels to just like make it make sense for folks and dogs. So I appreciate you. All right. I'm going to tee this up. I'm going to tee it up in like 30 seconds or less. It's probably going to take me 2 minutes. Okay. So for as long as project management has had a name, projects have been getting done off the sides of the desks of folks who might never consider themselves to be project managers at all. Maybe it's developing new team training. Maybe it's switching to a new accounting system. Maybe it's planning the office holiday party. Many of these projects get done without much of the nerdy project management stuff like RACI charts and backlogs and risk registers and maybe any kind of plan whatsoever. Instead, they leverage a very special technique called informal project management, also known as just getting it done. But here's the thing. In 2025, between the rapid AI adoption and the turbulent economy, the stakes have been raised for what makes a qualified, hireable, and relevant professional. Project management in particular continues to live near the top of lists of the most in-demand skills, right alongside data fluency and AI. And some of those side of desk projects, yeah, they're getting a little bit more complicated. Those new training programs are becoming training about AI. That accounting system is expected to plug into dozens of other systems pretty seamlessly. That office party might need to start including some of your agentic teammates. But then the question is this: whether you consider yourself a project manager or not, what is the right level of project management to learn, to implement, and to champion in your role? What's enough to get you that edge these days without like wasting your time? All right, that's my tee up. And I thought maybe we'd dive in. I just kind of wanted to start with like, I don't know, like the current state of project management training and education. And I mentioned this earlier, right? Some people just don't want to pick it up. It's like indigestible, it's dense. I thought maybe I'd just ask the question, like, why are some people and some organizations just so allergic to the idea of getting their people some project management training? Maybe I'll throw to Crystal.
You got great questions, Galen. Let's see. Well, general training is always hard, right? At any organization, because it's, you've got to bill for that time. When it comes to project management training, I'll start first with, from my world of PMP training, there has been this scarcity mindset that if I train them, then they'll leave, right? And unfortunately, that has been the case. I will have students come to me. I'm paying this out of my own pocket because I'm like, I'm all for other people's money. I'm like, why won't you get your company to pay for it? I'm like, I don't want them to know I'm getting training because I'm trying to leave. And I'm like, well, I mean, why don't you get them to train you, pay for it, and you might be inclined to stay. And there's a whole bunch of other reasons why they might want to leave, for, dynamics with their manager. But that has been the one that I've heard a lot, is that from a company standpoint, they might leave. And it goes to that saying, I think it was Richard Branson, right, from Virgin Atlantic, where he says, well, if you don't let them get trained and they might leave, but what if they don't get trained and they stay? So that's something I want to kick out there to those who are in that leadership standpoint, or even just maybe hesitant to approach your manager about paying for it. I mean, especially in this market, I don't mind staying just a little bit longer until things kind of, the dust settles. So that's kind of, I want to hear from the other panelists, but I'll throw that out there. It's the fear of them leaving after you train them.
That's a dance as well, isn't it? Right? The like, will you pay for my training? Am I going to get like locked in for 5 years because you helped me get my PMP? Are you going to leave because we trained you? It's like, what a dance, what a ballet.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I love that in the comment. I'll let anyone else in the panel bring that up from Suzanne. But yeah, it's a really good comment as well.
Yeah, that organizations might not understand project management. And speaking of, James, you work with a lot of big organizations that I kind of just expected. You and I are both ex-Accenture, but like, with these big companies, I'm just like, oh yeah. There's probably like a little portal where you can just like learn project management at any time. But I don't know, do you find that to be the case?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so I was a CIO, so I kind of play in that game a lot of the time, a lot of conversations with senior people. Very few of them have PMP. Right, it's weird. I don't know if it's like once you get your PMP, that's projects for life, or like people just hide it once they. But very few people actually know when they get to the top levels what they're talking about when it comes to projects. They've got there for other reasons often, largely because project managers burn out and they're working too hard and they don't have time to sort of take a breath out and look at their career and think about, hang on a second, I could do something slightly different here. Like for me, I think training is so crucial, but also particularly what's available. Like over here in Ireland and the UK, there's this thing called Prince 2, which is like proper, like fun. You have to follow the process. This sign off, that sign off, this document, right? PMP is not as bad as that. It gives you the toolbox, but it's still very heavy. And particularly like when you actually go and do the exam, and Crystal, like I read a large chunk of your book, and I love the way you simplify it down. But there's so much in here, right? And there's stuff in here that I think is just, and not because you've written it, it's dead wrong from PMP, right? It's dead wrong. Like Moscow prioritization is a terrible way to prioritize. Estimation should be done with effort and duration, not just one. Like there's such simple things that people are making mistakes at. So when they come out of their PMP, even those that do, they're like blasted by this kind of noise of all the things. And then they go back and do exactly what they were doing before, but now they've got 3 letters after their name and they cost more. I don't know. Like, what do people think?
I personally think it's fascinating what you said about this notion that, like, yeah, at that sort of CIO level, at that executive level, like projects are getting done, productivity is important. Maybe they have a PMP, maybe they don't, but the language being spoken isn't PMP language necessarily, which I think is a myth for a lot of folks getting in, right? So like, Melissa, you probably have a better eye on it than me, but like some of the, younger professionals who are like, maybe I should take this up, are going like beelining it straight to like, oh, maybe I should do my PMP, and maybe that's right and maybe that's not.
Yeah, I just want to add to that something that James said was when I got my PMP and being here in the Washington, D.C. area, there's what's called federal contracting. And my manager said, hey, if you're going to be key personnel on this contract, you need to get your PMP. And he's like, take the boot camp, pass the exam, and then unlearn everything that you just did. And I'm like, what? So it's to your point, James, about like there's just dense information and you've got to do it this way. And that is something that I do stress in the book, is that you can skip around in the book. Here it is to know what's in the exam. But one of the things that I always tell people, and I assume that the rest of the panelists do, is that, you need to tailor to what meets the best needs of your organization. It is not do this, do that, do this. And it feels prescriptive that way. And I think that's the turnoff when you don't necessarily get the right guide, I'll say, whether they're a trainer or a mentor, to tell you, here's the basket of everything you can do. And given the context of your project and the situation, here are maybe some of the things that you might want to pick and choose from, at least from a traditional standpoint. I love Moscow technique, by the way.
Oh, let's get into that.
I told them I was going to make them some boxing gloves with our logo on it. Melissa, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll keep mine concise. So working in a lot of startups directly with C-suite, I think organizations that shy away from project management training simply don't know what true project management is. Like there's a lack of knowledge about the capability of a properly trained project manager and the profession as a whole. Like they don't understand that there really is a science to project management. There are real strategies, there are real tools, there are real techniques that can help prevent the fire before it happens and really radically change the state of the organization. But they're looking at, the cost of training, and they can't correlate. They don't see the value or the ROI. And I think most organizations, I always say, they rather buy the fire extinguisher during the fire as opposed to before. And so like, to me, that's fundamentally the problem that I've seen working kind of on the other side.
I like
but
that.
That's the interesting thing. Like, does the PMP, does a lot of the training actually give value? If you're going to put it away after you've done it and you go back into the thing and you're not doing valuable things, like, so there's a challenge there, right? Which is, how do you train people in valuable things that aren't necessarily like so prescriptive?
I wonder if we dig in there, because, this other player has entered the chat called AI, and we're talking about, in the chat, and Melissa, your point, right, that sometimes people just don't understand project management, the value thereof. And now, conceivably, we're about to skip that whole part and go, that's okay, AI gets it. We don't need project management. AI has learned, they've done the deep learning models, they've learned everything about project management. We don't even need to know anymore. But I guess, in your opinion, and from what conversations you've had, like, how is AI helping folks who are not project managers lead projects? Like, where is it working, and maybe where is it not helping at all?
Yeah, so this is an amazing question. It's so relevant to where we are right now in time with AI. So all of the process heavy tasks that we used to learn through training, like James's training or the PMP, or however you're getting your training. So the things like building Gantt charts, tracking risks, summarizing updates, AI can now generate that stuff for us in minutes, if not seconds. I see James's head going like this, but if you know how to prompt AI, if you know how to use the right tools, I've done it. So my most recent project was a multi-million-dollar project, and I just threw all my lessons learned into closed source AI, and it spun up the best project plan that I have ever had. It has mitigated so many risks for me. And so I've seen how AI can remove that friction of the process side of project management. But where it doesn't help, to answer your question, is AI cannot lead people. It doesn't have intuition. It doesn't build trust. It can't build a relationship with a team member who's really struggling and needs some understanding, or just needs like your human presence. It can't inspire a team. It can't stand between two people and de-escalate a conflict in real time. That human judgment and that EQ, AI obviously cannot do, right? But project management is a lot of process, which AI can certainly help us with, but it's also people. And I don't think any amount of automation or prompt engineering or any type of AI can replace that human aspect. And I also think for people who are job searching, hiring managers know this, whether it's subconscious or conscious, and they're looking for more and more people who have these more deeply human traits, because project management is at its core deeply human. And I'll stop there. I can keep
Mic
going.
drop. In the chat, it says, preach, Melissa. And I'm like, yeah.
So I want to unpack a little bit of that, right? So I agree with you, Melissa. I teach how to do risk identification, let's say using ChatGPT, something like that, right? Really useful tool, but very dangerous, because for me, risk identification is a massive source of all those stakeholders out there, the team members, finding out and bringing them on the journey of the project, right? Getting them to input their risks is, whether they come up with exactly the same thing as ChatGPT or not, it's an important part of the process. And if we outsource that piece to AI, we lose something really powerful, right? Because it's not about filling in a document, it's about managing the risk, right? What's the thing that's keeping my team awake at night? So I do both, right? On the training course, I teach this SAVE technique, sun, writing, affinity clustering, vote, and then execute, for pulling out the ideas and the things that might go wrong from my team. And once you have that, by all means, ask ChatGPT and see what you've missed, and see if there's useful things in there. Bring it in as a tool. But if you don't ask the people, you won't get buy-in. And I think that's the big risk, particularly for junior project managers or people who really haven't had the experience of stakeholder influencing and listening to people, because that's really the game. Then I think there's a huge risk that stuff just goes into risk logs because it came out of an AI. Nobody reads it, nobody believes it, and it's not managing risk. It's just a waste of everybody's time, which is back to your process. We've got a risk log, therefore we're managing risk problem.
I think that's the magic sauce, though, right? Like, Melissa, when you were saying, about your project planning, there is this, you have that strategic, proactive mindset. You're looking at it and you're like, cool, I'm going to use this to drive the dialogue. And I think, James, that's what you're saying as well, is that let's not skip that process of really thinking about the project and being bought into the project and having ownership of the project. But I think, James, you and I, we've probably both been, maybe all of us, we've been in risk management sessions where we're like, cool, what might happen with our project? And it's just crickets for 10 minutes and everyone's just twiddling their thumbs, looking at the ceiling, and no one knows where to start. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I like the idea that the process.
I've never been in one of those now. With the silent writing technique,
That's because you use Play-Doh.
Get their ideas out there in no time. Brilliant.
The trick is Play-Doh, balloons, Marble Rush, and beer.
The beer comes later, but yeah.
No, I love that. And I think that's a really interesting perspective. I'm seeing loads of stuff in the chat here, which I think is really important, just in terms of, most of what you're saying, that balance of get good at using it. don't make it skip parts of the process that are very human. And
Yes.
the big mic drop that, like, I was like, well, we could just end the session there. The human skills that people are looking for sit under project management. Hiring managers in some cases know that. Does everyone else in the organization know that? Maybe not, but that's kind of what you're saying, I guess, in a way, when you're like, I have the skills to lead a project. Does not necessarily mean, you know, Gantt chart and prompting AI. It's like the human component too. It's a leadership thing.
100%. It's 50-50. Both what James is saying about the human aspect and being able to really use AI to make you bigger, badder, stronger as a project manager, because it will. 100%.
Boom.
Yeah.
I love that. I want to circle back around to the other player, right? We were talking about the PMP. We've been bragging on it a little bit, but there's some realities of it, right? James, you were saying that PMP, like no one at the top seems to have their PMP or doesn't put it on their profile. And, you know, we're talking about sort of PMP as maybe an imperfect path to learning. So certification, I think, is great. In terms of learning, not entirely sure. But I thought maybe I'd just kind of like put the question out there. Like, who is the PMP right for these days? Like, when does it become useful for professionals who like don't actually consider themselves to be project managers by trade, or James, to your point, who don't want to get boxed in to project management for the rest of their career? Crystal, maybe I'll start with you. You've literally written a book on it.
Yeah, you know, I think I probably still need to figure that out now over the last couple of years. When prior to 2021, when there was the change to the exam, there definitely was some emphasis like on contracts, on, you know, you have your skills. And then there was this boom on social media. Hey, want to transition into project management, get your PMP. And I'm like, like that's like, but obviously if the market is reacting to that and that's what it takes to get into the job, I think kind of to James' point, I would give people who get their PMP, you know, they just did what they needed to do to pass. And then they said, but I don't know project management. I just learned what I need to know to pass the exam. And that breaks my heart because, you know, even to my earlier story about my boss said, unlearn everything you did. There's really a lot of value in the things that you can tap into. I think it's just become this commoditized type of credential, unfortunately, that we kind of lost the flavoring of what it really can do to bring in some terminology, to bring in clarity about how you can address a situation. And what I really emphasize, and I think, you know, just already interacting in my short engagement with Melissa and James, you know, you have some top tier trainers that are really going to dive in and really tell you the so what. Why does the RACI chart matter? I mean, you can use it for the sake of using it, but what I want people to understand is that those tools that you use, like Monday.com, Asana, Clarity, Primavera, just about 99% of the tools that are out there are actually based on these PMP better and Prince 2 better practices. So if you ever get stumped on like, man, I put this in here and I don't understand why, if you really take a step back and like, what's the so what of what I'm learning and how does it translate to the tool and how can it help me in better managing the project from a technical standpoint? But as James and Melissa talked about from a people aspect, I just taught a class today with a corporate client on influential leadership. And I made the connection. Well, how does this work to your use of Asana? Like, what is this so what? And when you input this information in the description, when you tag people, when you put in tags to the actual task itself, this is how they all come together. And that's where I want to encourage people. Don't just go chasing it for the sake of chasing it, is my kind of plea. Like, really dig into it now. Do things like you're doing now of, you know what, I really struggled with this concept. I'm going to actually learn a little bit more and see if it's applicable to my project. I kind of like this WBS thing. In fact, I do like a WBS. Like, that is what I will get my whiteboard out. And that's what I actually do to start planning and then work backwards to create a project charter. So the world is your oyster. Choose your adventure on how you want to order things. and do it. But there's a lot of great tools and great ahas and nuggets that I think come from the training. And I think if you have a great trainer that gives you that so what behind it, you're better for it.
I love it. This is such a good decoder ring for everything. Go ahead,
Yes.
James.
Yep. You're so right, Crystal. Like, it comes down to the ability to sort the wheat from the chaff, right? So like there's so much in PMP. I did my PMP, right? I passed it, and I'm good at exams. I just passed, and like I read the book, I did some exam prep, and I passed the exam. And a lot of it I didn't see value in, and a lot of it I did. But the trouble is, everything is level. Everything is the same emphasis when you're studying it, right? So, for example, one of the massive blind spots that most project managers have when they're estimating things is the difference between work effort and duration. And even I had a little check back into the book, and the PMP exam is currently talking about estimating in duration. And I think that's actually a bad way to do it. Estimating work effort and then plan in duration and understand your resource leveling. And if you miss that trick, your project plans will be rubbish and your estimates will be rubbish. And that fundamentally is the gap. And you and I can know that we estimate in effort and plan in duration. But if you don't make that distinction really clear and bang it home 3 times throughout the course, people will miss it. And then they've got these plans that are kind of like worky duration plans that are bad and don't actually give a chance to deliver the course. And unfortunately, that's the problem with the methodology approach, or the exam, but particularly the exam-based approach to learning this stuff. I think do it because you're going to get paid more, right? Back to the history of the world, you're going to get a 10% bump when you do your PMP. That's it. Do your PMP, get a 10% bump, but please, please understand it and use the good stuff and throw away the bad stuff. Like, and if you don't understand it, don't use it. That would be my plea to people who are thinking about this stuff.
I like what you're saying about the flatness of it. Go on, Melissa.
Use AI to do your estimates. That'll solve your
Oh,
problems. It's always
You're
very
so wrong. You're so wrong.
You're trying to give James a heart attack here.
Just
But tell me
works.
more about the
It
process,
takes me
because
half the listen. It
Go on,
works.
Finish your
I'm going to preface with just saying I definitely agree with the fact that like the PMP is not going to like magically get you a job. It's not going to magically make you a better project manager overnight. You really and I think when PMI designed the PMBOK guide, I'm gonna defend them a little bit here. They don't expect you to use every tiny tool in the order that they have it in. It really is, even when you really dig into the PMBOK guide, they expect you to pick and choose what processes and tools work best for you and your team and your project. And I think while, yes, there's some stuff in there that's controversial, I don't agree with everything in the PMBOK guide. I do think the premise of initiating through closing and a lot of those tools, like I love a good work breakdown structure. Are you kidding me? Crystal, I resonate with you so hard on that. I think there's a lot of good in the PMBOK guide. And I think if you, like I used like PMP strategies to plan my wedding and it was perfection. But like, I do think there's a lot of good in that. However, I do agree that like, if you don't have the experience or the confidence, it's going to be, your PMP is not going to really do much for you. And it is sad when, people that don't really quite qualify for the PMP, they go out and they get a PMP using, they kind of, they do the thing and they get the PMP and then they're like, oh no, what do I do now? And it's like, you really need, whether it's like volunteer, pro bono work, this is some great advice for those of you. I know some of my students are in the audience. If you have just some sort of experience that you can fall back on and then give you that PMP will give you that confidence as well. And that kind of gold stamp of approval, that's a good way to use it. But is it going to make you a better project manager overnight? No, something like James training where it's more practical application is going to be probably a little bit better for that.
you know what, if I can get in there, like, I think that's like what makes this such a great decoder ring, right? Where PMP isn't training. Crystal, you said like there was this sort of blow up at some point. There was like a new edition and now it's for everybody and everyone can learn project management. But fundamentally, when I took my PMP, it was about validating years of experience that I already had. It wasn't training, it was validation and accreditation. And now I think it's being thrown around as like, oh, it's my next step out of college. And I'm like, the other thing that keeps coming out of this conversation, I hear like guide, trainer, right? Some support to help you like navigate through this because some of these things aren't training, and you do need to build that judgment to like pick and choose. And some of these techniques are really valid, but like, you know, committing any version of the PMBOK to memory and then just going out into the world probably isn't the right idea. The one place I wanted to take it though, because I'm interested, I'm curious, and I'm old, is Melissa. I'm like, tell me about PMBOK TikTok. Not really, but like, you know, TikTok, social media, short form video, like
Yeah.
as a guide. Maybe not like training, maybe training, but also
Oh.
as a guide. Like how does that change the game in terms of like, instead of right
Mhm.
saying, okay, well, like looks like I need my PMP to like succeed at life, I'll start doing that right now. Is there sort of like a place to start for folks to kind of start exploring and start learning and start sort of building this judgment before they start committing to something bigger?
Definitely. So I think one thing we don't talk enough about is how many people are already leading projects and don't even realize it. And that's a lot of the educating that I'm doing on TikTok. So that realization, when you realize like, oh my gosh, I've been running projects for a really long time, very formally. There are people who are from charter to closeout doing lessons learned, and they're doing project management, but they don't even realize it. And so that realization is often what changes everything. And I think I mean, I've had hundreds of people over the years. I've been doing this for 4 years now, and I've had hundreds of people come to me and say like, thank you. I was able to get a higher pay. I was able to, you know, pivot into a formal project management role because I didn't realize the work that I was doing was truly project management. And so, and this is where we layer in that PMP, which is like the PMP isn't just for people with the job title project managers, for people who are running projects and want that gold stamp of approval on their, you know, those credentials behind their name, and to kind of give them that leg up. So I think for me, when it comes to short form video, are you going to learn how to be a better project manager through like a 30-second, 20-second video? No, you may learn tips and tricks. You may learn like something like I talked about the other day, like a interesting question to ask your team to get them to explain, you know, the risks that they foresee. Like you can get quick tips and tricks out of those things. You can get realization. You can get confidence. I think it's really good for that. But of course, it's like TikTok is not a training guide or a training course. But there's so much value in short form video, which is why we see the explosion of short form on platforms now like LinkedIn, where they're really pushing that short form content because it's effective and it works and it's exciting and it's you know it's attention grabbing.
It gives people
I'm going to have
exposure.
a crack at TikTok short form training, right? I've already got some videos, but genuinely, I kind of agree with what you're saying, Melissa. Like it's good to go deep. And I don't think there's anything that's too long or too short. There's only too boring. Like you can binge watch. I could binge watch an absolute expert talking for 2, 3, 4 hours and learning every second, or get bored with someone for 30 seconds. So it's not too long or too short. It's too boring is the question. And if you can make content that's engaging, interesting, useful all the way through, however long it is, I think people will follow it and use it. And I think probably that's the skill that maybe you and I need to, like I need to learn from you, right? How do you get those points across in short, snappy videos, but they're really useful stuff, right? How to do planning poker in 30 seconds, how to do a lean coffee in 1 minute, right? That stuff I think is really powerful. And I think we can build those skills, and that should be part of all of our learning. Like I had this idea of a growth mindset. Like for me, just bumping into learning isn't good enough. I need to direct my learning. I need to go and find the person I need to follow, and not just the person. I need to find the person talking about the right topic, and I choose the audiobooks that I listen to. So I think if you're listening to this, you're in the right place, because Galen's stuff is brilliant, and I love the podcast. But you should also be looking at, okay, hang on a second, I've got a gap in negotiating. Oh, I need a big negotiation. I better go and read a book on negotiation. Audiobook, out for a walk, and off you go. And for me, I think that's where you take ownership of your own journey. And PMP is part of that, but it's only a tiny little part. And for me, it's more about the signal that you're going to get the extra 10% pay rise or the job offer, or get flagged as a PM if that's what you want, versus that it's the only way and you're going to have everything you need after doing PMP, because I just don't think that's true.
I like this sort of like this pastiche that's being painted, right? There's like no one right way. Tips, exposure, right, to people who know what they're talking about, especially if they're not boring. Like short form video could be the thing, right? you know, just 5 negotiation tips that you need from someone, you know, who's been leading projects that have gone wrong for the past decade. You know, it's like that's helpful too. PMP maybe is that sort of like level up, you know, it's the check you can cash, right? To say, I have these skills, but Melissa, to your point, a lot of people have been building them along the way, have been exposing themselves to it along the way. It doesn't start and end necessarily with like a certification or like a framework like Prince 2 or what have you. It almost like can culminate there. Crystal.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you think about some of these other certifications that are out there, I mean, I was going to do the analogy of being a doctor, and I'm like, that's a terrible analogy. So like maybe like a cybersecurity, right? I mean, you can do all the work and have the skill sets, but what is the value? And I would say that it's this confidence, right? That you have, that someone has this training and this certification, that they do know the core competencies. And that was the intent of the PMP, that you have the core competencies, you have the background depending on your educational level. And I think we have kind of diverged from that a bit. And I think there's an opportunity to kind of get back in line a bit. So one of the things that the PMBOK was mentioned, I definitely want to make sure, if you see the comment from Cheryl Galen about, you know, is there something between PMP and just winging it? And I'd love to hear from the rest of the panelists, like through social media. And some of us, you know, already kind of hinted at it. But sometimes it's just nice to have a reference. And I think you have references for you, like James's book, like Melissa's TikTok presence, like my book, where I saw that, hey, let's make it crystal clear and make sure that, you know, what's the so what behind it. So if you want that reference point, so if social media works for you, that's great. Now, will social media be what you need if you feel that getting this credential, putting the feather in your cap and saying, yes, I'm committed. And that's what I really tell people, is that it's a signal to the community, potential employers, recruiters, that you are committed to this career field. Like, I'm not just saying I'm a project manager, even though it might list it here. But unfortunately, I've seen time and time and again, people who have the years of experience get passed over by someone who is just enough project management experience and they have the PMP. So if it's a signal to the positions that you want, and sometimes what I coach and guide people is, you know, look at the people that you admire. If you admire James and Melissa and myself and Galen, and you look at their background and what credentials do they have, what positions, and if it's a consistent certification that keeps coming up, one, reach out to those folks and say, hey, did you find value? Do you find value in this credential? And then two, maybe it is that indicator that you want to get the PMP. Just as a quick aside, I had someone reach out to me and said, hey, I'm considering change management or PMP. Which one should I get? And I'm like, I don't know what you want to do with your career. Like, those are really two different things to me. I teach PMP. And if you want to be in that project management lane, but you know, credentials get expensive. So just, I saw someone also in the chat about the disciplined agile, and I'm going to step away from that because I'm done with credentials. Like, I'm good. I don't need that anymore because they're expensive to maintain, not only in terms of your time for getting the PDUs, and then you have to pay to research. So just be strategic and know your why. What is your why around that? If you want to be more in project delivery, you see yourself as a PMO director, I see the value in it. And especially if the positions keep saying PMP preferred, yes, you should consider it.
I want to maybe we can make that shift. James, I think you're about to go here anyways, because we're kind of talking about PMP as a way to kind of be recognized and maybe have a leg up if you're pursuing a career in project management. James, you mentioned that folks at the top, the C-suite, the CIOs, your CIO peers, not a lot of them seem to have PMPs. And I think in the green room, as we were doing prep, you mentioned to me that you've actually hidden the fact that you have a PMP so that you don't get stuck in a project lane. So like, where does this top out? Is it the question of like, you're, you know, like you said earlier, do you get locked into projects by having a PMP credential?
Yeah, I think like I don't regret at all doing my PMP. I did it after my breakdown and after my that experience in 2016, which I know a lot of people resonate with. And those of you that don't know me, like, you know, I went through a pretty horrific thing because I was trying to manage my project in ways that I didn't really understand, and I was following a process that was kind of the organization's process, and it broke me. It broke me. It put me in hospital. And but after that, I did my PMP and I learned a load of stuff. And I got better as a project manager. But I also realized that PMP is not the whole thing. And Krista, you said something about like, is it PMP or is it change management? I don't actually see a difference between project management and change management. I don't see a difference between what Scrum Master does and what a project manager does. I see differences in the mechanics of what they do, but the soft skills, the how to motivate people, the how to understand and estimate things, they're all the skills of a Scrum Master are valuable to a project manager. All the skills of a change manager are valuable to a Scrum. They're all valuable, right? So find the skills that are going to be valuable for you in your role. And I think that's where the certification problem breaks, right? Because if you bucket and say it's only project management stuff that I'm going to learn, then you're going to missing out on negotiation and design thinking and facilitation techniques and change management and listening. And if you think you're going to be a change manager, you're not going to know about Gantt charts and risk management, right? And if you're going to be a Scrum Master and you don't know how to like plan things out, then you're just missing a trick, right? Because your stakeholders want to see that in most organizations. So learn all of the things that you need and just keep learning. That's the thing. Just keep going. It's not just once and done with a certification.
I like the
Now,
growth mindset
James,
aspect.
I have to ask. So is it keep learning or keep getting certifications?
Keep learning.
Right. So it doesn't have to be getting a certification per se.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for me, certification, I could take or leave them. Right. I've got some. I'm a scaled agile framework person, and I'm a Scrum Master, and I'm a PMP, or not anymore. I've lapsed my PMP because like, what were the PDUs for? I was just reading a book every day. I teach the stuff, right? Like what? I don't need that level anymore. So for me, it's much more important to direct your learning at the useful things that you need. So there's a great book, right? I had to have a crucial conversation, difficult conversation with someone in my scout group. Actually, scouts is a thing that I do. And there was this guy and like clashing. So I was like, oh, I don't want to have this bad. Nothing. I couldn't find anything in PMP or any of this. So I went and found a book called Crucial Conversations, and I read it, and it was useful. And then I did some of the things in that book, and then we don't have a problem anymore, right? So for me, that's the point. Right? Find the problem you have and learn a thing that's going to be useful for that problem. And it's good to get a certification. And don't get me wrong, right? I think PMP will give you a 10% pay rise. Until that happens, right? Do it. You know, fine. Get your PMP, get your project management pay rise. But then if you want to keep going up, you can't be a CIO just off the back of a PMP. You need to understand IT security, and you need to understand, you know, motivating teams and having discussions about value with stakeholders, and like taking you can't be a CFO. So that's the point, right? Drive your career in your direction. And these certifications are part of it, by all means, but don't stop there. And the trouble is, you do 6 months and you're exhausted, and then you stop maybe for a year or 2 years learning. And I'd rather do bite-sized and find the good stuff and keep applying it.
This is such a good detangle. I want to get into audience questions in a little bit, but I just wanted to say that I appreciate this detangle where, Crystal, you kind of opened up and you said, like, I think not necessarily PMI, but the world kind of got confused about what all these things are: training, tips, techniques, coaching, certification. But like, we've kind of just detangled it, right? Sometimes you do need a practical tip. James, to your point, maybe that's a book. Melissa, maybe that's short form video just to kind of get you over that hump. Structured training and structured learning, or having a guide or having some help, like a trainer, to kind of guide you and like to help you find where you want to go with your career. And if you do want to go deep and be recognized for it, then yeah, certifications are great. Maybe not the entire alphabet, but where you want to get that pay rise, where you want to edge out the other, you know, your competition. I hate to say it that way, but I think it is, right? It's like, so that you get that promotion first, so that you get that job over that other person. Like, that's where that's what the muscle is for. Like, well, that's kind of what it does. So again, it comes back to what you want to do with the thing that you're going to do. Is it about mastering a technique like Crucial Conversations? Is it about being a great project manager? Is it about just growth mindset, learning, continuously learning, and just being better and better and better. It's fabulous. I do want to get into questions a little bit. I'm gonna like shelve my other questions because they might come up anyways. But before we get into Q&A, I just have a few things to share, a few resources to share. First of all, if you're loving this type of thing, we'd love to see you again next week at our next live session, which is called How to Use Your PM Skills to Negotiate a Raise in 2025. Michael's going to pop that link in the chat. We're going to be leveraging fresh data from our 2025 DPM salary survey that is being published apparently today to help folks with what to do, what to say, and how to say it to negotiate for a better salary, to get around some of the con blockers and more. You can RSVP for that event using that link in the chat. You can also find our guests online sharing even more about some of the best practices and advice that they're talking about today. We'll share some of these links in the chat. James has his book. It's also narrated by him as an audiobook, which is lovely. The printed book has great cartoons. Leading Impactful Teams is the name of the book. Crystal just made a list of the top 5 things she wished every PMP student knew before they started studying, and is available as a free Google Doc. We'll link that there. And Melissa is just sharing content regularly on LinkedIn. You can follow her there. And if you do like learning on TikTok, then you can join her and the 64,000 followers. Are you serious? Wow. Folks getting project management tips from her over there. And the last thing I want to say is that we here at the Digital Project Manager, we thrive on feedback. It can be raw, honest feedback. We love it. This is our product. This is the experience that we want to keep iterating on and getting better and better and better. This is our sort of area of growth. Michael's going to put a link in the chat. He already has, just with a quick survey. If you've got like a minute or two, we'd love to know what you thought about today, and also where we should go from here, what other topics we should tackle in future events. Yeah, okay. Whew. Let's start doing some questions from the audience. I'm just gonna dive down here. I know we answered some along the way, and we can dive deeper if need be, but I want to go into this one, which is about remote project managers. The question is, what's the future for remote PM roles now? In the project management subreddit, tons of users say remote PM work is dead, but is it? And why does it have to be paid lower than an in-office role? Ooh. That's a juicy one. Anyone want to take that?
I'll have a go at it. So, no, it's not dead. Like projects need managing. If they're remote, they need a manager, right? Someone's going to manage it. Now, so there's definitely not dead. Different set of skills, right? And harder, much harder than managing it when you can meet people and get to so it's gonna be much harder. Fundamentally, project's gonna take longer. The relationship's gonna be harder to maintain. It's gonna be not as good as it can be if you get some time face to face, right? On the question about why it has to be paid less, the competition is much higher, right? If you're in a location where there's a project going, Melissa, you're talking about a hospital, right? The people who are in and around that area, like they need to go there and do stuff physically, so they need to live in that area. If that hospital is in the middle of San Francisco, you need to pay an expensive person who lives in San Francisco to manage it, right? If everything's online, you can find a great project manager in a different part of the world where living isn't as expensive, and you can pay them less, and they're okay with that, right? I've got a virtual assistant who lives in the Philippines. She's amazing. She's awesome. And I pay her well. I pay her very well for the Philippines. But she's competing with people who are trying to do social media marketing and that kind of stuff in London or somewhere like that. She's going to walk all over them. She's just better. So I think that's the challenge, right? This arbitrage of where you live only really kicks in if you get in the office. And that's not what people want to hear, but that's tricky.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, it's not dead. It's just more in demand. So there's more competition for those roles, and it's harder to get. And then yes, there's situations like James. My VA is also in the Philippines, and she does an incredible job. And so yeah, it's not that I'm fully remote program manager, but you know, there would be a fight for my job. There would be probably hundreds and hundreds of applications if I wasn't in this role. So competition.
Imagine what you could be paid if you were there, Melissa. Like, I'd love to have you managing projects.
I was gonna say the opposite. I was like, if you're a remote PM, don't live in San Francisco.
That's true. Definitely.
A very expensive place to live. I have another question here. kind of focusing around foundations versus sort of like new frameworks. The question is, what strategies can help professionals continuously integrate new frameworks like Prince2 without losing focus on foundational skills? I have a feeling James might have some thoughts here, but also hop on, anybody.
I have thoughts, but I'll let someone else go first. They won't stick.
This is specific to Prince too?
I think is it found like frameworks like Prince2.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna defer to Melissa.
What was the question? What are our thoughts on frameworks like Prince2?
It's like the strategies to help you kind of integrate new stuff, like as new frameworks are coming out, without losing focus on some of the foundational skills. And correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking of foundational skills, like some of the things we're talking about, like, you know, can we get too far away from some of these human skills, negotiation, or even just like, James, the way you explain planning and prioritization, and then trying to work in all of these like frameworks that are going to come with their own jargon and have to be done sort of a certain way and might have some rigidity to it. Is it going to pull people away from something that actually was a simple foundational thing?
Yeah, so I think the key for that is Crystal said something earlier that I teach all of my students, which is like figure out your why first, right? What do you fundamentally want to do? What is your purpose? What like lights you up? What is exciting to you as a project manager? Because there's different project management roles. There's different types of things you could be in C-suite like James, and maybe that's your trajectory, right? So figure out your why first. Then based on that, you figure out what am I missing in order to do my why really, really well, right? If I want to be a tech program manager and I want to manage a big team, am I a good communicator? Am I a good negotiator? Am I a good collaborator? You know, am I emotionally intelligent? Figure out what are those things you're missing. Or maybe your team is agile and you just don't know agile and you need to take a course on agile, or you need to learn. Then learn that thing a little bit at a time. You don't want to do information overload. A lot of people take in way more information that they can actually ever apply in that pace. So you learn the thing and then you apply it. That has been like how I've been able to kind of like do a good job and move up as fast as I have, is like learn the skill I'm missing. The one thing, I focus on that for a month, I apply it. I get really good, and then I move on to the next thing, right? So I think it's like, it's less about, there's so many people that are like, which certification should I get? Which is gonna make me like, you know, well, that doesn't matter. You need to figure out what is right for you. What do you actually fundamentally want to do with your life and with your career? And I think that should drive everything.
Just a couple of builds of what you're saying, Melissa. Like, so what you're saying there about learn a thing, great. Do it better, teach it.
Oh,
that for me is when you really understand something, right? Once you teach someone else, then you understand it, for me. And I think that's what I constantly try, and that's how you build your team. This is why I was able, as a CIO, to go down to a 4-day week, because my team just started stepping up into whatever I was doing, because I kept on teaching them how to do it. And that's great. Takes the pressure off me, gives them opportunities. It's a wonderful thing. Back to the beginning of the question, Galen, you asked about Prince2 and applying methodologies. Don't.
Yes.
Right? Just don't. Right? Stop it. Right? Prince2 is designed projects in controlled environments. It was designed by some guys over in the UK in a very specific set of circumstances where they needed sign off on everything because there were politicians in charge and they needed to prove everything had been done. And what it does is it creates massive amounts of bureaucracy that is unnecessary in most organizations. It's not a complete waste of time in some organizations, but in most organizations, Prince2 is overcooking. And it's not empowering people. It's not giving people an ability to manage things well, right? So if your organization is a very controlled, and if you're doing the space shuttle or something, right? Like if you're building something that has to be really, really controlled, fine. Prince2, go and study it and use the best bits of it, right? But most of us aren't there, right? Most of us, and that's the problem with methodologies, is they're designed by the people who understand the area that they understand for the area that they understand. And the skill for the rest of us is to understand their thing and your thing and my thing and everybody's thing, and figure out what we're going to do in my location, right? And I think that's where you start to have good conversations internally. And I think the simpler you make it, so my methodology, if you want to call it that, is value and effort prioritization. That's it. Highest value, lowest effort things first. Everything else is extra, right? And that just unlocks lots of things. I don't think I can boil it down any simpler than that. But that's a useful tool, whatever you're doing. And I think most of these, particularly things like Prince 2, PMP is not so bad, right? Because it is a body of knowledge. It's a useful set of tools, as long as you're not doing earned value and VAR and all that kind of jazz, because nobody really understands that. I've never seen it used. And then, but at least it's a useful toolbox, right? Whereas I think the methodology, even something like Scaled Agile, the Scaled Agile framework is like this idea that we take Agile and stick waterfall over the top of it, and then have these like 3 monthly planning sessions where everybody comes together and use bits of stick. It's just wrong. And I've seen organizations, big organizations, broken, and people put in hospital by this stuff. Following a methodology just because you're following a methodology is a bad idea. Understanding a methodology is useful, but following it just because it's there is stupid, bad, and wrong. And I will fight against it every day of my life.
I love that. It's such an important thing.
Yeah, I love it. We can have drinks all day, James, about it, because I'm so glad you said that. I didn't mean to cut you off, Galen, but I when I heard the question, I'm like, I don't know if it's going to go over well, because why are you focused on the whole implementing a framework, right? So that was my first inclination. It's here's the toolbox, as James said, but it just like when we even get into that whole, you're doing water agile, you're the expert, you're the project professional, and you're helping the organization as a strategic business owner to help them through, here's the best way that I think, based on my understanding of this organization and what we need. And someone said it best, I was trying to find it in the chat, where she's implementing these things piecemeal to get those short-term wins and not fixated on a framework. So if it was you, go ahead and shout out in the chat again. But it's knowing here's a framework, but I would be careful, because that's when you get boxed in really easily. You get burdened by all the administrative paperwork. And I have been in many organizations where they've built beautiful documents and never used them. So, and it was all about creating this framework, creating this PMO type structure. Just get the win is my encouragement. And that's where knowing those good set of tools, keep learning, will get you there and get you further in your project goals.
Boom. I love that. We're nearly at time. There's a great question in there about what makes an exceptional PM. I almost want to have a separate session for that, if you all don't mind. It's a great question. I'm sorry we didn't get around to it. But honestly, I just want to say thanks to everyone who attended. This was lots of fun. To our panelists, thank you again for volunteering your time, sharing your knowledge, teaching in a not boring way in your respective channels. And again, I encourage everyone here to follow these three. They're excellent. And if you could take one thing away, the big theme, I think, was just know the reason why you're doing a thing. Why are you taking from a framework? What was the context that framework was created in? What is the purpose of the PMP? What's it going to do for you? And find the things that help you learn, continue to grow, get the training, and then maybe get the certification to get you to where you need to go. All right, I'll leave it there. Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your whatever day of the week it is. And I will see you guys all at the next one.